And before we start, we have the sign-in sheets, and it's a little bit different this time around because I guess the fire administration was having trouble discerning the signatures. So just to make sure that everyone gets the credit that they need for the time that they're here, they were just asking for them to be printed out,
Okay.
as well as a signature.
Okay.
And that's the only reason for that.
Okay, doke.
Read your names. Read your signatures.
A lot of doctor signatures.
Okay, Craig, we had emailed you a package of proposals on Friday about 1 p.m. I had emailed you the Article 33 EMS proposal the Thursday, the day before, but I told you that I hadn't had the package together, so I emailed you the package about 1 p.m. on Friday, and I think y'all have gone through them. First I just want to talk about a little bit about that, because in our package proposals there is a lot of movement. We put additional money on Articles 10 and 11 with regard to base wages, and we have agreed to the ad pay tiered system on the ambulance duty per shift worked. So we did agree to that particular item. We had a proposal on the city's EMS, or the article on EMS, and what we were looking at, generally on that proposal, what we're looking at is a way to provide relief to the firefighter to EMS from riding the ambulance. So we came up with a proposal on that would allow them, after a certain amount of time, to request time away from ambulance duty, and I believe it was a year every 4 years, after a temporary reassignment that's already available currently to them, which is, I think, 2 pay periods, which is a total of 4 weeks every 6 months. And that's just generally what we have added in there. On Article 6 was the management rights. I believe we've come up to some agreeable language on that. On Article 35, which is a complete agreement, and the past practices section where we're trying to address that. Our proposal was that any past practices would be mutually agreed upon by a memorandum of understanding, so that there's no question about that. And then on Article 9, association rights, I believe we're still looking for the firefighters to donate whatever amount is necessary of personal leave to cover the salary and benefits of the whoever the president will be at the time. And we have received counter proposals to those from you this morning, and I think we received 8, which includes the definitions. We're working on definitions on our end too, so we'll take what you have and add it to ours.
Okay.
And then I see in your email that you have stated that we've agreed to the Article 6 language, but you're just waiting to see if we can come to an agreement on the Article 35 complete agreement, so that
Right.
we can sign a TA on that.
Right.
So I'll let you go ahead and go over the rest of the articles we have. We don't really have to go over definitions today,
Yeah, that's fine.
so we can start on
Okay.
9.
Let's start on 9. There's still, we have reworked that section 1C. Right now, to do a special assessment under the current contract is a really cumbersome method whereby we have to get everybody to sign a new form authorizing the special assessment, which makes it very difficult to do special assessments. I mean, it's just as if, we had to get everybody to re-sign a new
Card.
yeah, dues deduction. So what we did was we took some language out of the police contract. This is where this comes from. And if the association holds a meeting and approves a special assessment by majority vote, The association president simply notifies the city of that fact. We selected the amount of $50 per month to be invoiced by the city as a fee for collecting the special assessment. Again, borrowed that from the police contract. And so, you know, special assessments are relatively rare things. I don't know, when's the last time y'all did a special assessment, Carlos?
This year.
Huh?
2002.
This
We haven't
year.
done one this year.
No, we haven't done it this year.
A special assessment?
A special assessment, yes.
For what?
No.
Attorney's fees.
No, we haven't done one.
We haven't done a special assessment.
What y'all
And
figured
I want to point out that they haven't paid their
Well-
attorneys.
Y'all figured out was never
In fact, that was the reason, remember I provided you with a cost amount of what it cost? It was based on a special assessment from the,
We
It would-
voted on it, we
We
never.
voted on it, but it was never
we
turned
never
over to the
implemented
city.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't.
we haven't acted on it yet.
Yeah, I saw that email, but we've never done that assessment.
that's odd, okay. Well,
That's why I was looking at your bill.
our side received a request for a special assessment, and so that's what.
From Carlos?
From
or-
Carlos.
Sammy.
Okay.
No.
Scandal brewing.
So anyway,
No, we met with their payroll to discuss it, but it's never been implemented.
okay, well.
They also asked that the money be delivered in cash in a black bag under
They
a
wanted
bridge.
We're actually
A
the Burlap
special
bag.
suitcase at the port. Well, anyway, okay.
Okay,
Well,
well,
that's why, the special assessment
Can-
issues had come to light, because I did as I understand them, special assessments can only be done upon a majority vote from the, is there anything that can change in regards to that? Does it have to be changed in the bylaws of the union, or how would that change? How do we ensure that that's, you know, I understand that there's an indemnity provision, I believe, that's already
Yeah.
in here
Yeah,
on
there
the
is.
special assessment, so, I just wanna make sure that we don't have any kind of open areas of liability.
you know, yeah, I mean, the liability would all be on us. I mean, because, you know, we have agreed to, indemnify you. And, so, you know, obviously, the thing that we're trying to do is to simply make it easier for us to do a special assessment when we need to do one.
Okay,
Okay, I mean, that's the only goal.
Sure.
And,
and what is, the city may invoice the association the amount of $50 per month, on a
yeah,
monthly basis?
if they
Is that
said
to
for the
cover-
next 8 pay periods, we want you to deduct an additional amount of X from each member's, you know, thing,
Mhm.
then, y'all would do that, and while that was going on, we'd pay you $50 a month to
Okay.
cover the costs.
Okay,
Now, I think that y'all had, you know, suggested that a special assessment, you know, and a lot of special assessments may be a one-time thing, in which case we just give you the $50 that, but,
right, in this instance, and I'm guessing it didn't go through, but it was being talked about, and there were things that were going on within the payroll department to make sure that everything was in line. What was happening was that, some members wanted it taken out all at once, some members wanted it taken out over, I think the special assessment that was being voted on was over, or if it wasn't voted on, that was being voted on was over a year's period. Some of them wanted it spread out during that whole year, some of the members wanted it spread out over 6 months, you know. It was all different for each one, and so, I need to look at that as well.
okay. But, okay. Yeah, look at that, but again, we took it from the police contract, and our only purpose here is to make it easier
Sure.
for us to do. I mean, it's very cumbersome to go and get everybody to sign a piece of paper. And it's not even that people don't want to sign the piece of paper, but, I would think that whenever we did a special assessment, that we would have to notify you of how it was gonna work, and it would work the same way for everybody. We're not gonna encumber you with, okay, this guy wants it over a year, this guy, that's unreasonable,
Okay,
and we wouldn't do that,
okay.
okay? On the president's time off, again, what we've done is we have agreed to pay the amount that it actually costs, but only for base salary. I'll get back to that in a minute. I wanted to highlight the word pro rata share, which is about halfway down through paragraph A. The reason for that is that we have 40-hour-a-week employees and we have 54-hour-a-week employees, and obviously their dollar, people in the same rank have different hourly rates, and so whereas right now our last proposal was 4 for the shift people and 5 for the shift people and 4 for the. It's to maintain that same kind of pro rata.
Okay.
And that's all that's going on there. As to where this came from, again, this came from the police contract. The police currently reimburse the city for the actual cost only of the president's base salary, and not only the president, but also for a half year for the association vice president. So, we're not asking for an additional half-time off for another employee, but what we are asking is that we be only required to pay back the base salary. We think that's consistent with what you're doing with your other bargaining unit, and it's sort of a fairness issue with us. So, I believe that, that the amount of time would probably be in line with, and I would point out that over the last several years especially, this is taken from people's personal leave accounts, but that I'm been notified by my team, and I'm sure y'all are aware, excuse me, that we have people losing personal leave every year as it is. That in other words, at the end of the year, they haven't been able to use their personal leave. It doesn't roll over, they just lose it. So, y'all are, to some extent, we feel that time that's lost should count towards reimbursement. And, I'm sure your finance people can tell you, or maybe they can't, but I certainly have bunches of my firefighters that are losing personal leave. And that situation may get worse, actually, with the addition of additional people, because there's a limit on how many people can take personal leave in any given shift. And so I don't think actually that it's fair that people should lose personal leave because they're just not able to take it, and that's something that the chief may want to visit in his policies. But at the same time, we may be paying for more than it appears that we're paying right now. Okay. On section 3, the reason
Before you move on,
Yeah.
Can I ask the deletion of creating that vacancy when the president is gone?
Yeah, we were concerned as you were. I think where it bogged down was that somebody, when the president comes back, that people get demoted and they put it on a 1-year reinstatement list. We're worried about the fact that, let's say the president was from the battalion chief rank, and they come back and a bat chief gets demoted. Y'all were only willing to have a 1-year reinstatement list because that's what the statute requires. And especially if our president ever came from a higher rank, our concern is that somebody gets bumped through no fault of their own, and then they're not able to get back to that rank, within the year, and so they lose the rank. And so rather than deal with that, and because the status quo is y'all have always just, not done that, we thought we would just leave the status quo. But if you want us to consider a counter proposal where if a person gets bumped when the president goes, they go on a permanent reinstatement list, we might
see.
reconsider it.
Okay.
Okay. Section 3. I've just put in which will not unreasonably be denied. That's something you've already agreed with a couple other places, and it seemed to make sense here. The reason I've crossed out the not violate any city and fire department policies, all of this is already subject to the fire chief's approval, okay? And so, the thing is that the fire chief does retain an ability to change city and fire department policies. And so it's sort of like buying a pig in a poke, agree to something and then the fire department policy gets changed or something like that. So it's always gonna be subject to the fire chief's approval anyway, as in all of these things. So it just, it's hard to bind ourselves to, city and fire department policies. I think that in deciding to grant or deny a request, the fire chief certainly can take that into account.
Okay. One of the, specifically on B, one of the reasons that was added in there, it wouldn't violate any city or fire department policies, is because you had consistently been including COPE fundraising in this, and we were trying to identify the kinds of fundraisers that would occur, and you've added such as, MDA, Cancer Awareness, and United Way, so that keeps it open a little bit. Our concern with any kind of COPE fundraising is that it's against any, city and basically general city policies and ethics standards that say that no political activity or fundraising should happen during work hours or at the at the actual fire stations. So that was our concern, and that's why that was done. So I'll look at it and see where.
Okay, I'm not sure if we've ever done any COPE fundraising at the fire station, and the such as is here are all sort of charitable, MDA, Cancer Awareness, and United Way. And there certainly could be, other charitable things that we would want to do. But our, I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
But at the same time, if we told the chief that we were going to go into the station and raise money for our COPE fund, the chief would have that knowledge when he approves or denies the request. So, and could say, well, I would rather you not do that at the station. Okay. So
okay, and I understand on that addition of which will not be unreasonably denied, but obviously there may be I think that may create the ability for the, whatever union representative is trying to achieve this permission from the chief, where they have two different definitions of unreasonable, which may, which may result in a grievance. I'll
file a grievance on this.
I don't think we would file a grievance on this. If Carlos or anybody came to the chief and said, hey, I'd like to go, and the chief says, well, this isn't a good time for whatever reason. Okay. I would hope that the conversation would be, okay, well, let's figure out a time that would be a good time, and that they would just work that out. It would say something very bad about fire department union relations if something like that ended up in a grievance.
Well, I just think that needed to be talked about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Section 7.
Oh, did I leave out the discussion of section?
It would just have that addition of shall be in compliance with all city and fire departmental policies.
Same thing.
I imagine it's the same thing. Prior notification and approval by the fire chief. The chief has the ability then to, and it just seems that, the chief can voice those concerns and that they would hopefully work it out. Okay.
I really don't think that there have been any problems.
Okay.
In terms of the access, but
the deletion of that, the non-inclusion of being in compliance with city and fire department policies, does not mean that those are forgone, right? Those still stand with regards to how the fire chief has to give his permission.
I think that the fire chief can certainly take the rules and regulations of the fire department into effect when the fire chief decides whether or not to grant permission. Okay,
next one
is Article 10. We've removed the language about the percentage that each step is. I think right now more than half of our people are topped out. But it's not, I promise you, it's not helping our people to understand the contract to put that in there. I don't, think it's necessary, but certainly there is a table that's in section 2 that anybody that wants to do the math could quickly do it. So, we've agreed to take the same 1.5% raise. There's a concern, I'm looking at section 2, there is a concern on our side of the table that we're getting so close to October 1st that it may make sense to take that 1.5 and roll it into the October 1st, 2015 pay raise, rather than doing it a little bit earlier. And you may see that in our next counter. But I have eliminated the signing bonus provision. But I have increased slightly what we're asking for in a pay raise on October 1st, 2015. I think 0.5% to take account of that. I have left in the Me Too provision, and there's really a concern on our side, and I share that concern, quite frankly, that we would agree to say a 1% or something like that you would propose for us, and then that, you know, you're in current negotiations with the police, and you would give them, or, you know, perhaps other employee groups, a bigger pay raise. We're willing to, you know, not worry about the other employee groups, but we do feel like, given the recent history of the two groups and the much larger pay raises that police have gotten, that it makes sense for y'all to agree to a Me Too. We just want some kind of assurances that you're not, you know, shortchanging firefighters vis-a-vis the police unit. You know, as you know, the city has for the past 3 years at least measured the police against a consortium of 25 cities, and that has resulted in large pay raises for the police. We did that same kind of math with regards to the firefighters, and it showed us to be pretty far behind those same comparable cities. And so we're willing to forego trying to catch up with other cities now, as you've done for the police, but we don't want to fall further behind, if that makes sense. And so that's the concern. If you don't like the Me Too provision, then what I would suggest is, you know, think about some other way that you can reassure us that we're, you know, not going to fall further behind as we have these last several years. So, any questions about that? We have moved closer to you on the proposal, and I think if we just keep working on it, we can find that spot.
Yeah, I just want to point out, as I've had before, that these negotiations are separate apart. There's different factors and analysis that we do for each department, specific to those departments, and the operations that are involved. Also, I'd like to point out in the last, and I'd be happy to provide you with that costing, which I believe we can provide that to you as soon as we get back into caucus. But on our new proposal that we gave you on Friday, we have gone up. We did, let me get the proper costing. Here it is. We did go up to, starting on, we have that 1.5 for 2015, but on each of the other years, we've gone up to a percentage with a 0.5% on the last year. We've agreed to the ambulance shift pay, which was tiered at 25, 35, and 45. And on top of agreeing to not just the tier amounts, we did agree to your tier years, which does have a cost implication to it. We had been, because we had been working with the 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and then beyond 10 years, that's what we had proposed at first. Now we accepted your tier where it accounted for 0 to 3 years on the ambulance, 4 to 7 years, and then 8 years and beyond. And I can't remember the last tier, whether it ended at 8 and it was 8 or more years. But we did agree to that, and there was a cost implication for us to do that because we start paying those higher amounts sooner rather than later. But we did agree to that. The salary increase on the base alone is $5.7 million in new monies over with the contract ending in 2019. The ambulance shift pay that we agreed to as with regard to tier and the amounts alone is $1.07 million. in new monies, ending in 2019. Well, I'm saying with the contract ending, I mean, those tiers stay on depending on what's negotiated with the next contract. The certified paramedic that we have proposed goes up to $100 a year on year 3. That alone is $400,000 in new monies. The education incentive is about $11,000 of new monies, and we have taken into account all that's already budgeted, and we have credited for that. The battalion chief 120 month step, which we both agreed to, is approximately $200,000. And then the hazmat assignment on the going up to $75,000 on year 3 is approximately $60,000. So the total amount for all of that is $7.4 million that we have placed on the table in new monies currently. So we have made strides there.
Not denying that you've made strides. The bat chief figure surprises me a little bit. I don't know how many bat chiefs you have. I'm sure my guys do. But, you know, the raise from the 30 to the 120 month step for bat chief looks to me like a little over $300 or $3,600 per bat chief per year increase.
We have 10 bat chiefs.
Okay, so that's $36,000 a year. So even over a 4 or 5 year contract, that doesn't seem to add up to $200,000 to me. But maybe I'm just doing the math wrong. But Roxy,
It includes that includes our proposed 1.5% increase in 2005.
and I'm sure you've costed this out, but how much, you gave the police a 4% raise last year. How much money did that cost the city?
I don't have that figure in front of me, but I can
But
find
probably millions of dollars, right?
it. I'm sure.
You know, I mean, the firefighters have gone almost in fact, maybe 2 years now, because this is the first year you're starting the new fiscal year. But they've gone 2 years now without any pay raise whatsoever. A few of them may have gotten step increases, but a lot of them are topped out. In the last 3 years, the police have gotten 4, 4, and 4, and I'm sure that has cost the city many millions of dollars. You have two
I do
sets
know
of
that
competing concerns.
Right, and the police didn't get anything additional that I can recall in terms of benefits. Their health benefits weren't touched. Their pension wasn't touched, which is run differently than the fire department or the firefighters' pension. There was a lot of things that were agreed to within the collective bargaining agreement that had allowed for that to happen. Just as there had been stuff that had been agreed to in the last collective bargaining agreement, which they had agreed to, we would pay them in another way, such as benefits or other things, instead of adding on to the base pay, etc.
I don't want to be disagreeable, but I think that statement is just not true. The police health insurance is every bit as good as the fire health insurance, and if it's not, please tell me where. What you fail to consider with regards to police pension is although they get lesser pension from you, they also participate in Social Security. And I defy you to show me where the police took cuts to get those 4% raises. The police got the 4% raises.
I never said they got cuts.
Well, you said that
said
there were
they
things
never-
that offset was the word you used.
Well, offset, but I didn't say anything in cuts. We haven't cut anything from the fire department or the firefighters' collective bargaining agreement in the last time. We
I
didn't
hear
cut
you.
anything.
I hear you, but
We're not
I'm
even
just.
we're not even cutting anything from here. We have new monies on here, and if there is monies that are in the budget, we're trying to reallocate them to make them of more value to the firefighters as well as the city.
I hear you, but you've got two competing sets of issues going on. You know, you've got your ability to pay issues, and you're telling me, well, we've got X amount of new money, and we're giving it to you, and we appreciate that. But you also agreed to a parity system for the police that resulted in them getting larger pay raises than other city employees, including the firefighters. And I don't know where they are, parity-wise with these other 25 cities, but we didn't get the benefit of that. And I've heard you say before that, well, but health insurance was a big issue for you last time when we made concessions, but in point of fact, we don't have better health care or better health care costs. In fact, we still pay more than the police do. So, and our pension, if you add Social Security to what you pay for pension for police, I think we're only a couple, 3 percentage points difference. 1.5% difference. So I understand, there is the ability to pay issue, and we understand that, and we respect that. But we need you to confront the fact that with another bargaining group, you made a commitment to parity, and we know we're not at parity with those same cities for the firefighters. And we're not, and I've heard you say that, well, maybe those cities aren't good comparators for fire as they are for police, but I haven't heard you say anything about what is the comparator group that we should look at. And, so I'm not trying to solve that right now. I'm not trying to solve the parity issue. I'm just suggesting that our proposals, where we are right now, and we're not locked into anything, where we are right now is that we haven't had a pay raise for 2 years. We're trying to, take account of that in making our pay proposals.
Okay.
We're certainly not dissing the city's proposals. We're just asking for more. And I hope we're doing it in a way that doesn't just make us look like, we're trying to be greedy, because I don't think we are. On the supplemental pays, we're still asking for modest bumps, and I think they are modest bumps. For the most part, they're $10 a month for the various certifications. For most of those, we haven't had.
Are we moving on to another article?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Article
I'm
11.
sorry. Yeah, the supplemental pays, it's Article 11.
The only difference, only place we're asking for more than that is regards to paramedic pay and EMT pay. And there it's only $15 a month for EMT. It's a bigger increase for a certified paramedic. We're trying to, realizing that we've got the EMS problem that we're still trying to deal with, we're trying to create real incentives for people to want to retain that paramedic patch. On the assignment pays in Section 3, you've offered the $75 per month, but I think you only started the third year of the contract. We're asking that it be started a little bit earlier, but look for your counter on that. We're asking for modest increases in staff assignment and higher class pay. The higher class pay rates have been frozen for a long time, and so we are asking for a bump. We have trimmed our proposals there. And then, Roxy, at the very end, the grandfather provision on the educational incentive pay, we're trying not to lose people things that they currently enjoy. It's the same with the expense and tuition textbook reimbursement. You had indicated proposal before last that you left that out almost accidentally, but it didn't get back into your last proposal, so we're keeping it there.
Just on the D, right? The expense
Yeah,
to
D.
reimbursement. Okay.
The performance award we've left in, it doesn't seem to be much of a cost item to you. It is something that our firefighters have gotten used to, however it got started. And the biweekly pay periods, of course, doesn't cost you anything. It just, maintains the status quo. So, I would think that, obviously the additional money that we're asking for is something that you have to look at, but I don't think, I think we're getting a lot closer on the money there. So, let's go on to Article 12, which is overtime. We're still asking to maintain the status quo on overtime. I have to apologize because I have found a mistake that was made in something that looks like it's already agreed, and I'm looking at section 4 on page 1. The base pay and ad pays. It's what goes into the salary for purposes of determining overtime. And under the current contract, educational incentive pay and longevity pay is also in there. And I have always meant to maintain the status quo. I'm looking on page 8 and page 61 of the contract. On page 8, it talks about the regular rate as including base, longevity, educational incentive, assignment, and certification pay. And on page 61, it's the same thing, base, longevity, certification, and assignment pays. Excuse me. Yeah, 61.
Okay. I'll look at that, and I believe we're both on the same page with that, because we had decided, one of the things that the city said was, initially we wanted to go to the Federal Labor Standards Act. We didn't want to mess with the formula. That should be part of the formula. Let me make sure that we have costed it that way, but I believe that was our intention.
Okay. Yeah,
It was status quo, so I don't think that was going to be a big issue. But I need to confirm that, just to
I
make
hear
sure
you.
that I have.
And I apologize for that. I don't know how I got left out. I was scratching my head and looking back, and it's
Ultimately, the issue with overtime is not the formula, which that's part of the formula. It's just the scheduled versus worked, actually
Right.
worked.
I know,
So,
I know.
okay. So we can fix that, and I'll
Okay.
just confer with my team
And I'll
work
send you
together
an
to correct
amended
that.
proposal
Okay.
that takes care of that problem. Okay. That takes us down to Article 32. We're, what we've done in this one is y'all have basically asked for 6, up to 4 deputies and 2 assistants. Right now, you know, the number we feel under the current contract is 3. We've already agreed to raise it to 4. But in an attempt to make that look more attractive, we're saying that you can do it any way you want to. If you want 3 deputies and then 1 assistant, or vice versa, or 4 deputies and no assistants that are appointed. You can still have assistants that would be, do it that way. But, you know, I would hope that this wouldn't hold us up too much. I mean, our proposal is a gain for the city vis-a-vis what we think they currently enjoy.
Okay.
We realize that you have the position that we have unlimited deputies under the statute, but obviously it's limited to deputies. You don't have any for lower ranks. And we've given you assistants and also the assistant EMS director position as well that isn't appointed. So we feel like, you know, you've got a goodly number of appointments there. We've actually increased that. We hope that y'all will see that as a gain, and because it very clearly is a gain for you over and above the last contract.
And this doesn't touch the EMS supervisor
That-
appointment, correct? Okay.
The EMS, we kind of glossed over that in the overtime. We can go back to Article 12 for just a minute. You've got it's Section 3, and the only thing that we changed, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, it's coming up in Article 33. Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to that part.
Yeah, so I had glossed over it. I was just about to gloss over it. We're still a little bit at loggerheads. You know, I'm trying to crystallize the dispute between the parties. And what we're trying, you know, on the one hand, y'all have the MOU with regards to firefighter ones that you would like to change. And we have the problem with firefighter 2 EMS that burn out and may want to voluntarily demote, that we want to change. We're both seeking a change there, but the ultimate goal of the parties is the same, and that is to give people an out but to make sure that you have adequate staffing. And so what we've done is, we have agreed in our last proposal, vis-a-vis our last proposal, on the firefighter ones to go from 8 to 10 years before they could opt out of the rotation. And I've eliminated that word staffing shortage and increased operational needs. But you'll see that language, don't worry about that. You'll see that language in section 5, okay? And we'll get to that in a minute. With the firefighter 2s, and I'm looking at paragraph 6. And, they can request in writing to voluntarily demote to firefighter 1 and then not to have to ride the ambulance. But the fire chief has the ability to, we've added something here, and that is that the chief, when he gets that request, or she as the case may be, doesn't have to grant it immediately. They have a 6-month period that, that they can grant it. So if they're, I can't give it to you right now because, we've got a staffing crisis, then they have 6 months to figure out how to give that. And we still have section 5 that we're going to talk about. We have done that same thing with the various firefighter groups, but as you get up closer in time to when they were hired, obviously some of them have to maintain EMTB, some of them have to stay paramedic for life. All of that's still there. But they do have these outs. And in all cases, there's going to be a 1-year moratorium. So in other words, nobody is going to be able to get out of anything for the first year of the contract until September 1st of 2016. So I guess that's 11 months, but it's 14 months from now. So there's a moratorium on anybody getting out. And then if you go down to section 5, we'll come back to 3 in a minute. We've pretty much agreed to your language. The chief can can declare a moratorium, continue for the period necessary but not exceed 2 years. So, basically, we feel like we're giving the fire chief the tools that the chief needs to ensure that staffing will be adequate. And you've got this influx of people coming in that are going to be paramedic certified. And so I think that you have all the tools that you need to deal with the crisis, not only the immediate crisis, which you're curing with the staffing that you're doing, but also crises that may arise in the future. You're always going to have that ability to declare the moratorium. You're going to have 6 months when you get a request to figure out when and how to grant it. And so, right now, if we sign the contract today, you'd have a moratorium until September 1st, and then the ability to declare other moratoriums and to have a 6-month period to work on individual requests. So we really are trying to give you a lot of tools. Ultimately, we weren't too motivated by that you get out 1 year out of every 4 years. But, we do feel like that this would enable the chief to guarantee that there wouldn't be any staffing problems. And I would ask the chief and the assistants that deal with this issue to look at that really clearly, because I think we give you the tools that you need while preserving for our firefighters. And at the end of the day, this is one of the issues that has been a really difficult issue for us. And I also want to reiterate what I've been saying all along, which is that we really do need a longer-term solution to this, and that probably involves looking at this stuff over a longer period of time than we have to do right now. If you guys want to reopen the contract in a year and look at this issue on a more long-term basis, I think we would be amenable to that.
Okay.
So, Article 35. Oh, Section 3.
Okay.
The only thing that we changed in the assistant EMS, you still carry the rank of a battalion chief, although they're not a battalion chief. The only thing we changed is receipt of $150 per month in lieu of paramedic certification pay. Right now, we're asking for $150 a month in paramedic certification, but we do feel that whatever we pay people for being paramedics, that it doesn't make sense to pay this appointed position more than we pay other people. And so we're just asking that the assistant EMS chief, in terms of what they get for the patch, it'd be the same as everybody else in the department. And that's where we're coming from on that. Okay, we're not trying to deprive anybody of anything, but, and that's the only change we've made in that appointment procedure.
Okay, it just reflects whatever,
Whatever other
the
paramedics
certification
get,
is. Okay.
insert the sheet we get, or if the next one's a he, it would be he. Article 35. You know, the complete agreement clause that we really had already agreed to and y'all added something to, and maybe I should have asked you to explain why you did that. But the language that we have in our complete agreement clause, right now, of course, there is no complete agreement clause in the fire department contract. So this is a big thing you're asking us to give. What we have agreed to, and I thought y'all had agreed to, is the language that's in the police contract. And I don't think the police have been asked to change that. But it allows you, I think, with the exception of past practice, which we'll talk about in a moment, to know that you're not going to have to come back and bargain over every change you make in fire department rules, regulations. For the most part, you're going to retain the ability to do that. We do want the ability still to protect past practices that are important practices that have been in place for a while and are pretty much the status quo in the way that the fire department operates. I know that the city has a lot of heartburn about this particular provision because there have been a number of past practice or maintenance of standards grievances. We've moved away from the maintenance of standards language because there is a whole body of case law about past practice. The thing about the language that you propose that doesn't work for us is this, that you could stop any past practice from going into effect simply by refusing to agree to it and put it in writing. And so it sort of gives, one side a trump card, and really ultimately we feel would gain us nothing. But the burden is on us with regards to past practice to establish that it is an important term and condition of employment, that there is an established practice in place. It doesn't prevent you from changing each and every fire department policy, rule, and regulation. I hope, and I think it's good management practice, that the chief, before he makes changes in a particular fire department policy, that he would convene the LMR committee or talk to the association about it, try to get buy-in in advance. Not for small changes, but for larger changes certainly. But if there's something, if vacation has always been done by seniority or something like that, and then there's some kind of big change, that's going to be protected by past practice. And so to some extent, you say, well, now the complete agreement isn't just what's on paper here. And you're right. There are things that will be protected by past practice, but they'll be important things. And there is, I think we have to talk about it openly at the table. There are trust issues between the parties, and it's very difficult for us to give up a provision that's been a part of our contract, continues and will continue to be a part of the police contract. And so we're asking you to trust us a little bit. Our goal here, if we can get this contract inked, is to go back and look at all the grievances we filed and see if we can resolve those too. But, there has to be a little bit of trust here. We're showing our trust, I think, by, agreeing to some pretty substantial changes in the language of the management rights clause and in adding to the contract for the first time a complete agreement clause. What we're asking in exchange for that is the ability to retain this past practice language, which is in fact modified from the current contract, and which we've represented at the table we use to protect important practices and not to keep you from taking the TVs out of the stations, although we hope you won't take the TVs out of the stations. So, any rate, There are still differences between the parties, we realize that. I don't think any of these differences can't be overcome, but there are places where, you know, in past practice is certainly one of them, where, you know, my team feels very strongly about the need to have that kind of protection in there. So, let's keep working, and I'm thinking and hoping we'll get a deal.
Okay, I see some movement, so I'm very optimistic and very hopeful, and I think we're slowly bridging some gaps. So we will take your proposals and we will work on them and try to get you, even, we may not sit at the table today, but but I will get you proposals today.
Okay.
Okay, so at least we can try to talk about them tomorrow.
So that I have to work overnight instead of you. No, I get it.
I'll try to get them to you as soon as I can, so.
Okay.
But if I can get them sooner, then we can come sit on the, you know, if I can get them pretty quickly, I'll we can talk on the table, get some more movement, but, I'm just telling you that with the number of articles and the issues that we're working with, I'll probably need, the rest of the afternoon to get the package together.
Okay, and of course, if you have some proposals, you know, that aren't dependent on the others, that you can get to me earlier. I mean, you don't have to do it all as a lump sum. You
Sure,
can just-
absolutely.
so, okay.
But
Very
my
good.
goal would be so we can talk about all of them at least at once. So I'll start working and I'll keep you updated.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.